hours of pain.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this month's episode of Presenting Our Presence, or POP. POP is a monthly vodcast at the University of Alberta that amplifies and showcases the amazing Indigenous folks we have on this campus. And today we get a really awesome opportunity to get to know a faculty of law colleague, Kathleen. My name is Michelle Durocher from Fishing Lake Métis Settlement. And here at the university, I'm in the president's office as the executive operations coordinator. And my co-host today is the lovely Florence. And I'll turn it over to Florence to introduce herself.
Thanks so much, Michelle. And hi, everybody. I'm Florence Glanfield. I'm a citizen of the Métis Nation of Alberta and so honored to be alongside Michelle and Kathleen today. And Kathleen, we look forward to the visiting with you. And thank you for joining us. And now I'll turn it over to you, Kathleen, to introduce yourself in the way that you most like today.
Thank you. Good morning. And Masi. So my name is Kathleen Makela. I am a proud member of the Métis Nation of Fort Resolution in the Northwest Territories. My mother was born in Fort Resolution. My father was a settler. His parents were born in Finland, but my dad was born in Canada. And I am speaking with you from the Treaty 6 territory, and very happy to be here today.
Thank you, Kathleen. We're so excited to get to learn more about what you do here at the university. And I was wondering if you'd mind sharing a little bit about your journey to the Faculty of Law and how it is you support our amazing students.
But thank you. Yes. I work right now. I'm a full-time Indigenous support officer with the Faculty of Law, and the position, I've been here for a couple of years now, 3 going on 4 years. I really enjoy it, but it's work that I have been doing for many years, and primarily in the area of student service for Indigenous students. And how I came to be here it is a story I have to share. I went to law school many years ago. I won't say exactly when, but I was the first female Indigenous student at the University of New Brunswick. So when I went to law school, it was a very different time. And it was I found to be a very unwelcoming environment. And it was interesting because I had understood the impact of colonization on my family and Indigenous people throughout Canada. I had studied it and was well versed in all these, different subject areas. But I didn't realize how difficult or painful it would be to actually study the colonizer's law. So when I went into law school, I was very excited. And I can remember right away almost my bubble being burst. It was actually burst on the first day. But it's interesting because I, as so many Indigenous people, I don't give up. I'm one of these, I don't give up. And so I stuck with law school, even though I kind of knew from day one it wasn't sitting well with me. And but I went ahead, I did my law degree. But what happened was along that journey, I really got turned off of the law. And I found it seemed like I didn't belong either in the law school. I didn't belong in the legal profession. And it was odd because I had in my undergraduate had graduated top of my class, and I thought that I could do anything in the world. And I was really excited to go out there and make all this change and, begin. Back then we didn't have the term reconciliation, but it was decolonization. And I was really about that. And then law school kind of took the air out of my sails. And then what I did after law school is I didn't then go and article and get called to the bar. I really kind of turned away from that kind of direction. What I did was I actually took a job as a legal researcher at the Native Law Centre of Canada with James Youngblood Henderson. And what I found so exciting about the work there was that we really focused on the idea of justice as healing. That really, as an Indigenous people, we need to kind of start looking in and drawing on our own values and our own ways of healing and creating harmony and dealing with wrongs in the community. So I did that for several years. Then I actually realized that I wanted to impact the journey of Indigenous students as they go through university. And I was reflecting back on how difficult things were for me at times. And I think I also didn't reach out and I didn't use any of the services that were available to support me as a student. And I really felt, oh, those aren't for me. That's for, I hate to say it, but I actually thought that's for very white people. I just going to do this on my own. I later found out that there was services available that I could have used. And so I became, after about 6 years working in legal research, I started working in the area of student services. And really my focus became, how do I make the university more responsive and respectful of Indigenous people? And then how do I also help Indigenous students who are in university to access different services and to find their voice, to be able to navigate kind of the harsh terrain of university? Because of course it is an institution, and it's not as harsh as a jail or anything, but it's still an institution that is developed outside of our kind of how we see the world. And so one of the things I realized for myself was the importance of supporting students as they go through university, and in particular law school.
You, Kathleen. I think I think this is a trend I see in a bunch of other folks here at the university, um, that we all come to this place wanting to affect change and help students, um, and coming from the place of, because I didn't have help, because
Yes.
I had to figure it out. So I think, yeah, you're joining the ranks, and you are part of the ranks, I should say, of a lot of people who have that same feeling that, like, I want to give to these Indigenous student community, um, so that they don't have to face the kind of the barriers and the struggles that we had to face ourselves, but when we did it ourselves. So yeah, thank you so much for reflecting on that. Uh, what kind of challenges do you see, for our Indigenous students in the Faculty of Law here?
Well, this is a big question. And what I find, or what I would say, is that as an Indigenous student, when you go into law school, I think one of the things that's very painful, and I might have to pause a bit, but it's a very painful journey. And with that pain, we find, I guess it's actually, you can feel it. I felt it in law school as they were going through lessons. And it was funny because no one else reacted that way around me, or at least I couldn't see. And so I actually felt my body responding to different areas of law. And that pain became very, at times, unbearable. So I just have to pause for a second. Yeah. But I'll get it together. Don't worry.
Take your
Yeah.
time.
So
There's no rush. Yep.
yeah, because it is it's hard to describe. Um, but I think yeah. So I think as an Indigenous person, studying law is very painful. And then once you kind of you're feeling this pain, you're sitting in the classroom, then you kind of get confused. It's kind of like, I can't believe that they would make these racist laws. And why are they targeting Indigenous people? And of course, non-Indigenous people often don't see that. But as an Indigenous person, you see that, and it's confusing. It's like, wait a minute, this is Canada. this is where everyone looks to for guidance in human rights, respectful engagement and multiculturalism. So I think there's also this portion of confusion where you're kind of like, is this really what's happening? Is this really what the legal system of Canada is about? Um, and it is very racist towards Indigenous people, and it totally excludes our Indigenous laws quite often. It disrespects our elders, our stories, our women. Yeah. So I think the with that confusion, what leads often then becomes frustration. And we see this all the time with Indigenous students, Indigenous people, where you get frustrated. We're smart. We understand what's going on now. We see what's happening in the law. And then you get kind of frustrated, and you can either get angry or very sad. Usually both. And of course, we often laugh when we're, but it's hard because you're quite often people, once they get frustrated, they kind of get to a crossroads. And that for me came in my first year of law, where in property law, you have to, back in when I went to law school, they didn't recognize Aboriginal title. It was actually kind of forbidden to talk about in law school. They took me aside before I wrote my property law exam and said, do not talk about Aboriginal title or Aboriginal rights. And primarily, and this is the excuse they used, was that in law school, the marking is blind. So they never know who the students are when you're marking an exam. Everything, the student gets a personal little code, and the prof can't tell who you are. But because I was the only Indigenous woman there, and the only one who was vocal about Aboriginal rights, they said, if you talk about Aboriginal rights, we will know it's you and we will have to fail you. So that was my first preparation for my 100% closed book property law final in my first year law. And I actually called my auntie up in Yellowknife. And this is way back in the day where you had to go to the pay phone and plug in change and call. And I did that. And I said, Auntie, they want me to say that the Crown owns all the land in Canada and that they have, clear title. And I said, I can't really do that, Auntie. And you know what she said? You're here for a reason. You say what you have to do, what you have to do to get through. She said, as long as you don't believe it, and as long as you remember that, and then go and continue your journey, and then use that education to work on that system. So that's what I did. But I think so when we were talking about how it's painful to study law as an Indigenous person, it's very confusing because you realize how racist the laws are. And then it's very frustrating because you see this is the state we're in. And it's at that point, I think students can either get very driven and it motivates them and they're like, I'm taking this on. Or else they can withdraw. And that's what I did. In law school, I basically spent as little time as possible at the law school. I didn't engage with my classmates. And I also took on a lot of part-time jobs, which was kind of ridiculous because law school is very busy. But in my final year, I had like a 30-hour-a-week job with the provincial government, and I was the assistant dean of women for St. Thomas University. And I worked at a publishing company, and I went to law school. So I was like doing everything to not deal with the law. And I realized I really was my own worst enemy because I should have, anyways, I can't change what I did. But what made me realize is that I want to be there for students who are studying law. And as they're going through the pain, as they're going through the confusion and the frustration, and understanding that how people deal with that frustration is very unique. And what my job is to try and support them as they do that. And just to be there and meet them at their level and provide. So the work I do is I provide access to elders. We work with Elder Mushroom Rick Lightning. So we have sweats a couple of times a year. Students do find that, for some law students, it'd be the first time they went to a sweat. And that really helped them to understand how beautiful Indigenous law is and the purpose behind ceremony and how it can help feed their soul and help carry them through really difficult times. So we do provide services like that. But I also every morning go and I smudge the Wakotoan Lodge, which is part of the which is housed within the law center. And I've gotten a lot of feedback from students who say when they walk into the wall, like, when they walk into the halls of the law school, well, as they're approaching the law school, it's kind of scary. It's very ominous. It's a big gray building. Doesn't look inviting at all. But when they walk through the doors and they smell the sage, it changes them. It kind of feeds their soul and it gets them, it's like their ancestors start walking in with them. So.
Wow. There's lots that one can unpack. And I see Michelle was reaching to unmute herself. So I'm going to invite Michelle to pick up on a wonder. Michelle?
Thank you, Florence. Yeah, I thank you so much, Kathleen, for breaking this down the way you have, and for what you do for the students in your faculty. One of the things that really stuck out to me was what you were saying about giving them more time. And when you first said it, my mind was like, well, why? Because we have that colonial thought pattern first of how the university runs and how exams are dealt with, and then as you explained it, I was like, oh my gosh, that would have been so nice. Wow, that would have been, as you say, like just to be taken out of that hostile environment. And I as students in that space, having that little bit of compassion that they need, that support that they need with you in the room with them, I think it's so meaningful. And as you say, it doesn't give them an edge up. It just kind of evens things for them. And I think that's exactly what it needs to do, right? Like that's exactly what is missing from other ways that exams and essays and all that kind of other stuff is done traditionally in an academic setting, right? Is that consideration. And we've said this in other episodes before about how this place is not meant for Indigenous people. It was not built with the idea of Indigenous people being here. So every act of challenging those kinds of thought patterns is an act of reconciliation, and I think that's really important, that you are there for them and giving them that opportunity to just feel the support and the love is what I'm really what it's coming down to, right? That they need to really thrive in this environment that, like I said, is traditionally it was not built with Indigenous folks in mind. So thank you so much for what you do. Florence, I'll let you take over.
Yeah. Yeah, Kathleen, I was thinking about that. Just your presence is, given that we call this vodcast presenting our presence, and how important your presence is. And then, of course, the ways in which you invite them, and you're shaping the experiences Indigenous students are having in law school, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And, Florence, I find it's for me, it kind of helps to validate why I went to law school. And I have friends who went on and they have great jobs and making lots of money and stuff. And I realize that won't ever be me, but I'm rich in other ways. And That's important. Another thing we do at the law school is we do an eagle feather ceremony for the
Yes.
graduating students. So that is, and it's interesting because we actually apply for the eagle feathers through Alberta Fish and Game. And the only people who can apply for them are Indigenous people. And so you go through an application, but it's very respectful application. And you include, so we have elders and community leaders who that I understand that they want to make sure that the Fish and Game, and eventually we'll have to take this over very soon, I'm thinking. But for now, they do recognize the importance, the significance of the eagle feathers or any feathers that we request. Or, so we have two elders that will write a letter on our behalf. So, of course, one is Musham Rick Lightning, who actually helps us with the eagle feathers ceremony. He has the sweat that will take the feathers in and we have them blessed. And then he officiates at our ceremony, or not officiates, but, he leads it. And then we also have Elder Bruce Lee, who is also from the area, and he supports our initiative. And then, of course, we have Corin Lightning, who was the former legal director of the Wakotoan Lodge, and now she has a job with the city as their first Indigenous lawyer person, which is very exciting. I should know her name or title. But with the eagle feathers, it's a very significant event for the law students, and we do that to help them with, by giving them the eagle feather and them accepting it, that idea that this feather is going to help you as you continue on your legal journey. And remember how I was saying that when students, we get frustrated with the legal system, there's all sorts of ways that people continue on. Some will actually leave law school, but many will continue on. They graduate. And then what they do with their law degree, everyone is different, but there's quite a few that will go on and continue to push for change within the legal system and change to demand recognition of Indigenous law. There will some who will work within the system, so they become prosecutors. We need those. Some go and work in, just different areas of law, but they have their eagle feather, and it will help to, remind them and help guide them as they maneuver this next journey in life. Because, of course, law school is just one little piece, and it's an exciting piece. It's a hard piece. But then this whole new journey and whole new adventure begins. With lots of challenges. And so one of the things is letting them know that we're always here. And I think that's with the Alumni Association. I organize 2 gatherings a year for the Indigenous law students where we bring in Indigenous alumni from the area and friends of the university. So we have people who maybe graduate from other law schools but are now living in the Treaty 6 territory around the Edmonton area. And we have them come in and talk with the students. And we also have a celebration where we just get together and hang out. And it's funny because even when it's in a celebration of Indigenous students with Indigenous lawyers and judges who have been through what they've gone through, whenever we do it, the law students gather at the Wakotoan Lodge and they come together to the space for a celebration where they're the guest of honors. But even then they feel, there's some uneasiness, there's some, nervousness. And again, it just shows, how important it is that we have, and we have a body of Indigenous students. Like we have 14 coming in the first year. We had, I think, there's quite a bit, there's 46 altogether in first, second, and third year. So we have a strong number. And the students, even when they're going into their own space, they still kind of travel in a little pack. And then they all stick around and then they all kind of leave together too. So I love I think if nothing else, the law school is also learning how much Indigenous people connect and how strong those ties are. And those ties, when we bring in alumni, and they say, my best friend. So Larry Chartrand will say, my best friend is Dennis Callahoe. I went to law school with him 30 years ago, and we are still friends to this day. May not see each other all the time, but we can always pick up the phone and call each other if we need something, even just to say hello. And the same with Don Worm, and just so many different lawyers out there, which is really nice, I think. And that was something I never experienced in law school either. And to know that you're going into a community that has totally understands what you've been through, and is accepting and there to welcome you and support you, and to remind you of how much work you've done to get where you are. So I think the importance of alumni and friends, are that's always important. And it's a beautiful part of my job, is being able to connect the young law students and the baby lawyers with more seasoned people, like Tony Mandamin. And, he came to our eagle feather ceremony, and it was just so beautiful, and Tony's always, we can poke a little fun at him, but only very respectfully, because he's an amazing man. And it's nice that he takes the time out of his day to come and see the law students and get photos with them. And we were really happy. And it was very, it warms your heart and reminds us why we're doing this work.
Exactly, Kathleen. And I kept thinking as you're describing this journey of early career lawyer, later career lawyer, and interacting with legal students, it's kind of like our traditional ways of coming to know, because it was intergenerational, right?
Yes.
You were all sitting together. And I'm conscious of the time, and that we're almost near the end of our time of visiting with you. And I just want to express my deep gratitude and respect for the work you do, for all of the ways that you support the work within the Faculty of Law and the student success and Indigenous student success.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
I want you to know that throughout this interview, we've heard periodically we've heard the music of the birds singing in the background. And Michelle will next express their gratitude. But when we turn it to you for the last words, if you could offer our listeners a glimpse into where you're currently sitting so they understand. And I want you to know a big smile was on my face almost the whole time, because it reminded me of what I would have heard growing up. So
Yes.
the beautiful music of the birds was reminding me of my growing up time. So thank you again. I'll turn it to Michelle, and then you will be invited to say the final words.
Okay. Thank you. Mussy.
Thank you, Florence. Yeah, I wasn't going to say anything about the birds. So thank you, Florence, for taking the initiative on that. I felt the same thing. It feels like home. It sounds like home. And it just, even like, I'm sitting in University of Alberta campus right now, but I hear the sounds of home, and it's so comforting. So thank you so much for being out at the beach where you are today. That's so beautiful. So nice to have that experience with you. And I'll just echo Florence's sentiments about the work you do, and being so grateful that you're the person that is in that space for those students. Because I think, just based on this conversation alone, how much it means to you to be able to be there for them. And I think that probably really comes through in their experience and the gratitude that they have to you, and giving them that opportunity. So thank you so much for what you do here. I'm really looking forward to learning more about what you do. And we'll have a chat someday. We'll go out for coffee or something. I think that would be wonderful. So yeah, I'll just turn it to you now to close us out. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, Mussy, thank you both, and thank you for asking me to do this. You notice I was putting it off. I'm kind of nervous because it is very emotional, And not too many people ask, these in-depth questions such as you did. But this morning when we had the mama moose come and her babies, it was so cool. I'll show you I'll turn the camera around so you can see where I am. And this is my husband Larry Chartrand's cabin. But I don't know if you can see, but that's what our lawn looks. And we'll have to have, we've invited all the law students out. We're actually going to try and do a Métis Rising culture camp experience, Florence. So, and Michelle, you're a Métis from Fishing Lake. So, but I just wanted to say it's a real privilege to be here and to be asked to share kind of what I do with you. And I really appreciate it. And I see how the Creator works, and it's impressive, the circles and the way we move through life. And so our journey is so exciting. So, but with that, thank you so much. And I'm just happy to have been asked to join you. So thank you.
Masicho, Kathleen.
Masicho.
And yeah, the reminder of the Creator sending that mother moose with her babies this morning.
And where I'm sitting at my computer, I could see them get up on the shore. And yesterday, the same thing, but there was only the one. So we got worried the other one, but nope, the two were there today. And then we'll watch, and then later they'll come out of the woods and they'll go back and they'll swim over to the little island they live on. Isn't that very cool?
Yep, very cool. On that note, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care and thank you. Masi.
Yeah.